in education in particular, and there probably are other correlations to this, the the design of the technology tools are there to serve administrative management and collection and analysis of data. They are not there to serve the operational function of the teachers and educators in schools.
That that's a mic drop statement. Like,
It and
it's like what
yeah,
I mean, when you started the school, you started with the design thinking and philosophy of what would it look like to optimize what an 18-year-old is capable of as they enter this new uncertain world. Like that is a you clearly stated the problem you were trying to solve. And the problem that the authors of the software tools were trying to solve is how do we get these school administrators to buy these subscriptions from our company? And so the problem they were solving for was that administrator's need to track this particular piece of
that's right.
information. Where's the student in that?
Right. No, the student that's just assumed that that's happening somewhere else below, but the technology is agnostic or blind to those realities because it doesn't matter. And so there are two parts to that. One, it was realizing I'm not trying to be the administrative manager of this institution. I'm trying to be a leader that actually frees the human capital of great teachers to be making the difference in the lives of kids. And so the technology is like, wait, the technology doesn't care about that. It's not doing that. And then the second piece to it is realizing what those teachers need to be able to collaborate together towards that developmental goal. There are no educational tools for that. Like they actually don't exist. There's like this assumption. It's like, no, that's just on the burden of teachers to take on and do in the personal context of leading their classes, which we're going to administer uh, the details of and the information from to be able to manage that as a school and run our data analysis. But the actual work of making that, it's like there are no tools for that. That's just a teacher to student thing that has to happen below that, which is really, really difficult to do.
Yes.
And
And
so
so,
I was ready. Um, we had been donated a significant number of consulting hours to build a platform that would do this using Salesforce. And we had built prototypes and working models. Had we not had the donated consulting hours, I would never have chosen to pay that much amount of money to be able to do it. But it seemed like it was going to be a beneficial because we could, again, that design process, design from the outcomes that we wanted, build a platform that would be custom to us to being able to do that.
whatever that no whatever that number of donated consulting hours is, if you really did it, that number would be 1/50th of what you would end up needing.
And we were already recognizing that as we were getting ready to pull the trigger on beginning a crossover to implement it. Um, yeah.
So, as your friend and someone who cared a lot about what you were doing, um, I had this visceral reaction to that. Like I knew that if you did that, failure would follow that.
Yeah.
Like, and so at that
Well,
time, you go ahead.
yeah, no, what I was going to speak to is that there was even in our choice to do that, the interface and dashboards and tools that they had created for us, I still had baked into my assumption. And again, similar, like if I compare it to, the school analogy, the assumption is like, oh no, students are they just have to have 6 or 7 or 8 classes at a time and 45-minute blocks to do that. It's like, that's just how school works. I, we were setting aside those assumptions and saying, no, that's actually a horrible way for students to actually grow and learn. I had baked into my assumption on the technology side there's going to have to be a significant learning curve and frustration with the interface of making a tool work to support what we're doing, because I don't know a technology tool that doesn't have that. And so there was already I'm accepting that what we've created in Salesforce is not great, but it's at least trying to accomplish the functions that we need from it. And so I'm going to be okay with that. And that was that point that I was at when we had that conversation in the hotel and you uh, intervened.
Yeah, it's, the SaaS industry has been so successful as a delivery mechanism for software that it takes on an air of inevitability that whatever problem you're trying to solve, that I should just be able to reach up into the cloud and grab the next bespoke point SaaS tool. And the answer is you can actually.
Mm-hmm.
You can reach up into the cloud and grab the next one. But to our point earlier, um, there's a depreciating return on execution and alignment the more times you do that, because every one of those is a different operating architecture, a different language, a different login, a different UX. And the fact that they all have APIs at their edges for theoretical integration, like that happens 1% of the time.
Right, right.
Okay, so you were about to launch into Salesforce. Um, at that time, I was a couple of years into, like maybe 1.5 to 2 years into my own solo consulting pathway, in which I was starting to see a pretty groundbreaking pattern in which I was directing my small businesses away from 10, 15, 20 SaaS tools. In place of that, we were building customized databases in Notion, which I refer to as a no-code platform. It gets referred to in different categories. I think that's a roughly accurate description of it. I am not a coder. I can build you functional software through its databases, through its workflows. And so to me, that qualifies as a no-code platform.
Yeah.
And so um, I just said to you, like, hey, before you try to swallow Salesforce wholesale like that, let's spend a little bit of time together and see what databases and workflows you actually are envisioning. And so I introduced you to Notion, and you are a tinkerer. And you and I have been talking about productivity tools for a long time. Like, you introduced me to the Remarkable. That was, remember when you said that's my favorite productivity tool? Do you still use your Remarkable?
Absolutely, every day.
That's
Yeah.
cool. Um, and so I introduced you to Notion, and then you had an epiphany. Tell me about your early introduction to Notion and what you kind of started to realize.
The, yeah, there was a certain scales falling from the eyes moment of realizing that the interrelationship of databases and the simplicity of controlling the creation of them, the relationship of them, and the customized views of those. Um, there was a my I'm one of my hobbies is woodworking, and I do like to build things and build things for the functions that you need, and the designs that you have. And I realized, and even going back to the Salesforce building experience, we had been building um, on a tool that had been designed for an original use, and consultants have found ways to be able to kind of twist it to be able to do these other things, but it didn't change. The underlying architecture was built for a particular set of uses with a particular set of assumptions and biases built into it. And for me, what I realized Notion was, it was like, no, these are Legos. Like I can build anything, and I have assumed a level of um, compromise when it comes to what a tool has to do or can do that were based off of the fact that it was not as fully customizable as that. And so it it actually um, made me realize that I actually was not even considering the kinds of things that a tool could do for that school, and that operational level of what would it look like for us to find an education tool that actually helps teachers collaborate in the individual growth and journey and learning of each student. I realized it's like, oh, wait a minute, there is an opportunity here, and I almost need to start over again with what the ideation would look like to solve that problem that we're doing.
Yeah, I
It
remember.
was a little Alice in Wonderland going down and going, realizing, oh wow, this rabbit hole goes down a long ways.
Yeah, I remember you called and said, "Oh, I see what's happening here is I'm getting to build and iterate the entire time."
Well, and I think honestly, the piece of realizing within a few hours, I I had built a functional reproduction of what we had sought to do in Salesforce, and it literally was had been in the matter of hours. Um, and
That's
and realizing the customizable of, wait, I need to add another function or another interaction, and the process of having iterated what we had been building in Salesforce or what we had done in the student information system that we worked before, which was supposed to be, you have full control of your data, you can do all these different things, and kind of promised the moon and gave us dirt. In each of those cases, there were always, they, well, no, you can't do that. Well, it's like, oh, no, no, wait, we didn't set that up way, or no, we're not able to do that. And in each of these cases, realizing we could problem solve the design and relationships and features as we went without breaking it or meaning that we had to do a reset and how it functioned. Yeah, and it honestly, I mean, that we have been managing the rate of change and the creation of it has actually been one of the biggest pain points, because what the tool can do and how it can actually support what we're doing, we continue to discover it um, at a rate that I need to manage how to actually implement and roll that out in a way that itself doesn't become too much of a challenge.
yeah. So let me state just plainly, because we're telling this story incrementally, but
Yeah.
for anyone who's hung on this long, let me just say that um, 5 6 years later, or I guess it's been about 4 years since you've probably been building intentionally in
That's right.
Notion.
Yeah.
um, Craig has built a comprehensive, holistic school operating system in Notion that covers every facet of your business, the business of school.
Hmm.
It's possibly one of the most integrated, complete Notion workspaces I've ever seen. Like, bravo, sir.